Ah, man, what a week I had, guys. Let me tell you. It was, for the most of this week, it was very rainy. I got sick again, at least for 3 days. Now I'm better, thankfully. Uh, then then I had, how could I say, this quake. And I'm telling you, this happened today. A quake happened here in New Jersey, 4.8 and the Richter scale. I'm used to it, but still, quite a week. And on top of it all, my computer now has a chip crack. I don't know how it got it. Now it's cracked. Thankfully, it's not very bad, but it's gonna get very distracting. And by the way, yeah, the computer is now getting old. I got it in 2018, and now it's been kind of like 6 years. Even a little, I think something is a little bit raised here, and the plaque that it's distracting and all this stuff. But nothing else I can do. It's time for me to get ready to get a new computer nowadays. But yeah, some things were pretty salty, at least this week. And when it's about movies, well, you saw that I had kind of like a string of from bad to disappointing movies. Although, well, as much as I complain about Godzilla X Kong, at least that was a little bit of an improvement, but still it's disappointing. But okay, the movie of today, Monkey Man! A movie named Monkey Man. Whenever I hear it, the first thing that came into my mind is the supporting character of Hey Arnold. In that 90s cartoon, there was this guy in a cape that goes around town screaming "Monkey Man," and yeah, he even has his own episode where we see his quote unquote superhero origins. So, uh, so, and the guy has no name. He's only known as Monkey Man. And lo and behold, then we got this movie that came out, Monkey Man. This is the first thing that came out into my mind ever since I saw the trailer. Although I've been hearing kind of like it was getting kind of like a buzz for many reasons. One of them is that this is the directorial debut of Dev Patel, who I think he was an actor that he was in other movies. Slumdog Millionaire has come to my head. Although I'm not exactly 100% recognizing other people. Also, a lot of the trailers really made people get reminiscent to John Wick. And also, I've been hearing that this movie was supposed to be only for streaming services, but Jordan Peele, he saw potential in this movie and made his best to make it release on theaters. So in a way, I was kind of optimistic on watching that one. And I decided to go to watch Monkey Man over the first Omen. Even though I like horror movies a little bit more, the thing is that after getting disappointed with the first Exorcist, no, it wasn't the first Exorcist though. The Exorcist Believer. Ever since I was disappointed by The Exorcist Believer, I was very cautious on all these popular movie prequels, and lo and behold, funnily enough, I've been hearing good things about the first Omen. Although I'm not exactly sure, considering that, well, I'm not exactly also a big fan of the Omen. So let's leave it like that. This is the reason why I chose Monkey Man over the first Omen. And so I got there, I watched the movie, even though I went to a screening where they show subtitles. Yeah, out of that I didn't mind. But I will say that finally, after a long string of bad and disappointing movies, I finally came out really liking this movie. Monkey Man was actually really good. It was good, but it wasn't exactly that great because it also has some flaws that diminish it to make it probably good. But considering from what I saw, and for a first-time director, that is good. It's, I gotta congratulate Dev Patel that he showed better chops than the guy who made the American Society movie, which that one was also a first-time director, and he failed miserably. But this one actually had the better chops. I just sat through this movie really enjoying it, and I just came out with a very decent smile on my face. Although I also have to play a little bit of devil's advocate because there are some things that this movie might not be for everyone. And I will say that it will probably diminishes a little bit the score that it has. So I'll try to make it quick and make it as less spoilery as it is. So the movie is basically a revenge movie. It's about this guy who is also played by Dev Patel. It's all set in India. I know that probably his name, with the other name, I don't remember. Let's call it India. I'm used to that. Yeah, this guy is kind of like the washed down fighter from the underground fighting. He's wearing a monkey mask, and he is paid to always lose. He's doing his ends meet with the meager pay that he gets, by losing battles. But of course, it's not just that. He also has a plan. He's planning a revenge. He's planning a revenge on this big mafia organization of how can I describe it? They're kind of like gangsters. Corrupt people in which they have ties with politicians and the police. The typical gangster that they control everything. He just has set eyes on one guy that he just wants to have revenge, and basically that's the plot of the movie. It's a revenge. It's technically a revenge film. And yeah, I've seen all these revenge films in a lot of ways. I've seen it in anime, I've seen it in other movies, but like I said, you can recycle a very familiar plot as long as you make it interesting or good or a decent. I will actually take. And this one isn't too bad. It has kind of like this. It has kind of like the story that it needed to be. Also, the way it was told and storytelling, it almost feels like this is basically an entire probably an entire 25 episode revenge anime with all the chops that you and all the pacing that you get in this kind of stories, and you just see kind of like a 2 hour and 1 minute. I'll get to that, by the way. 2 hour and 1 minute movie that you get it. And it does help out that it does have that while there's some characters here and there that they're more kind of like supporting here and there, this is one that it actually tried to focus more on the main character, Dev Patel. Sorry about that. In which you root for the guy. He's basically an underdog character who during the movie you're gonna see why he's pissed, why he's angry, what is his motivation. Although they don't tell you kind of like immediately. It's just kind of like constructing this guy, and but for the most part, also the movie also makes a lot of references and allusions to Hindu mythology. In the case of him, which is the monkey man, he's always compared to Hanuman, the Hindu monkey deity that is a popular deity in the what was it, Ramanava story. I'm not exactly 100% knowledgeable on that. I know the basics, but not in its entirety. So, but basically, but there's also other references to other Hindu gods. They do mention Vishnu, Shiva, Parvati. I think they mentioned Metala. I don't know if that is Hindu. You can see Ganesha also there. I only remember most of it because I play Shin Megami Tensei, and also I do have a sister that is very interested in Hindu culture. But the point is that you're gonna see references about this here and there, and this also connects with other characters that he meets. Like for example, there's this kind of like, well, for lack of better word, comic relief that he kind of, yeah, for some reason he kind of sounds like a Hindu Joe Pesci for me, but he's a little bit slimy, but it's also kind of likable. There's also kind of like this woman who kind of sympathizes with him. There is how can I say, there's this leader of this revolutionary group who's kind of like, he has kind of like a very passive aggressive kind of, how can I say, teaching. There's also the villains, in which one of them is kind of like this very corrupt cop that I'm not gonna go too much into detail, but let's say that at least for the lack of better words, that or maybe to reveal you a little bit, let's say that this asshole did horrible things to our protagonist's mother, and that becomes, how can I say, the biggest motivation that this guy has to exact revenge on these people, because there's kind of like a big line of corruption that goes through with it, and well, and again, to make it comparisons to the mythology, Hanuman is actually a little bit of a hero in some of those stories, and that's technically, I will say, as much I will for when it's about the characters, and I already tell you about the storytelling. And here's the thing: as much as I keep praising the movie, here is where it kind of sinks down to the point that I think it gives me a little bit of a service, because like I said, as much as I love some movies, I always try to not overhyping it and give it and find some flaw. But of course, that one has a very big noticeable flaw that I think if Dev Patel is gonna direct more movies, this is where he should be more humble and learn. And that problem is a little bit the cinematography, because man, that the cinematography is a kind of flaw. It's not the worst, but it's because if I've seen the worst this year, I will say that Madam Web is one of them. But this one, where does it fail? For one, you can tell that the guy knows how to point the camera, but there is some it's a little bit has an extensive overuse of close-up shots that, while it does its job to convey an emotional ride on the characters, because it's very the movie is kind of more emotional than a kind of like thrilling, very actiony, which I'll get to that later. This one is more kind of like a personal thing, and I've been hearing a lot of people that they're calling the movie a little bit claustrophobic, and now that I think about it, they're kind of right. Sometimes in the close-up shots, it feels like the world is very close. Although in the beginning of the movie, at least it showcased a little bit the kind of world that it is. And personally, that the way it was depicted, it encouraged me to not go to India. That's the least I will say. This movie kind of encourages to not go to India because that India it doesn't look like a good place to go. I'm sorry, but here's, but I don't. The movie didn't make favor to show India as a vacationing spot, so no, thank you. And also here's also the movie's biggest problem. As good as the choreography it is, to the point that the action scenes, they go from borderline very well choreographed and also bloody. This movie is very bloody and very violent in some parts. As interesting as those sound, the movie brings back one of the biggest no-nos on movies, and that is shaky camera. That's right, they brought back shaky cameras, and it's very distracting, and we don't get to see most of the action scenes. They go all over with the shaky camera, and a lot of parts that it gets so distracting. Thankfully, there are parts that it gets better, but still, what was up with the shaky camera? And then also another thing that might turn off some people is a little bit the timing and the pacing of the movie. Because here's the thing, I did say that this movie is compared a little bit to John Wick, and by the way, yes and no, because it has a lot of the chops of John Wick. It's a revenge. I mean, Death Patel actually looks like a Hindu John Wick when you analyze it. Even the colors and the atmosphere really look like like a John Wick movie. But the difference with this and John Wick is that John Wick is what's mostly used kind of like for pure action, and sometimes you get kind of like very relentless on the pacing, that it kind of gets very fast. This one, the pacing is slower. It goes into parts that it might bore people out because it kind of more takes its time to have this huge build-up until then we get to kind of like this intense action scene. And after the intense action scene, then we get kind of like the middle part of the movie where it kind of goes to a stop and it goes to a more build-up that it kind of turns into the training montage, and then we get to the kind of like the next climax, and this whole thing, it kind of makes the movie stretch out long, and I was surprised when the movie ended. I was like, how long did this movie last? 2 hours 1 minute, and that I felt like this movie was 3 hours. I'm not kidding. That movie really felt like like a 3 hour long movie, but it was 2 hours, so that made me realize that maybe the pacing was a little bit kind of like stretched out a little bit too long. But you know what? For the benefit of the doubt, I wasn't bored because at least I would say that the movie makes a good work on keeping your interest as long as you pay attention. Because I am a little bit of a sucker on mythologies. I was more keen to look at how long they're gonna make stretches and allusions to the Hanuman mythology, and in some place they do. They even have some imagery that in order to color that, yeah, we're making this revenge story and compare our main protagonist to Hanuman, and he's basically kind of like the monkey deity who goes against the gods. In this case, in this case, uh, and as let's say, how can I best way to say, slumdog washout fighting man who who is kind of like deep down, from the slums, and he wants to take out this corrupt organization. This is the best way I can describe it. It's kind of like a revenge movie. And you know what? Come to think of it, I'm looking at the poster here in the IMDb, and for some reason, the poster is giving me the vibes of the Barbarian movie. Maybe the maybe the red and black thing that it has. But you know what? I think I talk enough about this movie, and I know that I think that this movie. I finally making this review a little bit shorter than the other ones that I did. I'm kind of glad, and I'm glad also that I saw a movie that I finally felt like this is what I'm talking about. This is now I'm watching a good movie, because man, that I had a kind of like a streak of disappointments nowadays. And so anyway, Monkey Man, check it out. It's no monkey business without monkey around with the with movies.